I had always considered myself a patient man, a good father, a provider, the kind of husband who didn't complain when things weren't perfect, who worked tirelessly to ensure my family had everything they needed. But patience wears thin when love is a one-sided effort, and when betrayal enters the home you built with your own two hands. Patience turns to something much darker. My name is Daniel Mercer. I am 45 years old, a man who devoted the last 20 years of his life to a woman who never truly saw me. Olivia, my wife, was beautiful, carefree, the kind of woman who lit up a room but contributed nothing to the household beyond her presence. Our children, Michael, 16, Sophie, 13, and Ben, 8, were left largely in my care. I made their meals, helped with their homework, took them to their activities. Olivia? She floated through life as though she were a guest in her own home. But I endured. I endured because I loved my children, because I thought marriage was about commitment, about weathering storms. And then, one afternoon, the storm finally arrived. It was Chloe who told me. Chloe, Olivia's best friend. The woman who had been part of our lives for years, always watching from the sidelines. I never thought much about her before. She was just another presence in the background. But that day, she became something else entirely. "I can't keep quiet anymore," she said, her voice shaking. We were sitting in a coffee shop, my fingers wrapped tightly around a steaming cup that I had no intention of drinking. "I've tried to protect you, Daniel, to protect the kids, but I can't stand by and watch her destroy you anymore." I frowned, my brow furrowing with confusion. "What are you talking about, Chloe?" I tried to maintain my composure, but anxiety crept in like a shadow. Her lips trembled. "I followed her," Chloe admitted, tears brimming in her eyes. "I suspected something for months. She wasn't even trying to hide it, Daniel. She's been meeting him in hotels, restaurants. I even found out he's been to your house when you weren't there." My stomach twisted into a knot. My house, the home I had worked so hard to build and protect for our family. A place filled with laughter and memories, now tainted by the knowledge of betrayal. I swallowed hard, the bile rising in my throat. "How long?" I forced out the words, each syllable heavy with dread. "More than a year." Chloe's voice was barely above a whisper, each word striking me like a hammer. 1 year. 1 whole year of looking into her eyes, her laughing, carefree eyes, and seeing nothing. A year spent assuming she was just busy or distracted while I poured my heart into keeping our family afloat. I inhaled sharply, trying to steady myself, but the betrayal slammed into me like a train. "Why are you telling me this now?" My voice was icy, more a shield than a question. Tears welled up in Chloe's eyes, but she didn't let them fall. "Because I love you, Daniel." I stared at her, stunned. Love. This wasn't the Chloe I knew. She had always been calm, collected, the loyal friend. When did it twist into this? I thought of Olivia, oblivious, enchanted by her own image. I felt a slow burn of something dark simmering in my chest, rage woven with humiliation. "Help me," I said, the words slipping out before I could reconsider. "Help me destroy her." Chloe hesitated, confusion tightening her features. "What do you mean?" Leaned in, my voice a quiet but insistent whisper. "I want her to pay. I want her to lose everything she took for granted. I want her to know what it feels like to be discarded." Chloe's eyes widened, the shock evident as she searched. I leaned in, my voice low and steady, an edge of steel beneath the calm. I want her to pay. I want her to lose everything she took for granted. I want her to know what it feels like to be discarded." Chloe held my gaze, a mix of concern and determination flickering in her eyes. For a moment she seemed to weigh my words, searching for a glimmer of hesitation or remorse. But she found none. Finally she nodded, her decision made. "What do you need?" And so, my face for any hint of hesitation or uncertainty. But there was none. Finally she nodded, her expression resolute. "What do you need?" And so, the plan began. The weeks that followed were a blur of meticulous planning and covert operations. I hired a private investigator. The plan began. I hired a private investigator, a meticulous man named Frank, who knew how to get exactly what I needed. In no time, he was almost like a ghost in the background of our lives, blending seamlessly into the neighborhood, gathering intel while my world slowly began to unravel. Named Frank, a wiry man with sharp eyes and a grin that suggested he enjoyed the chase almost too much. "I'll gather every scrap of evidence I can find," he promised, his voice rhythmic, like the ticking of a clock counting down to the inevitable. I watched as he meticulously. As the days passed, each piece of evidence was carefully collected and methodically documented. It felt both exhilarating and terrifying. One evening, I sat across the kitchen table from Chloe while the kids were occupied in the backyard, playing tag. The sunlight cast a warm golden hue through the window, but the mood felt cold. "Have you heard anything new?" I asked, feeling a flicker of impatience. The investigation had been ongoing for weeks, and I was anxious to know how closely Olivia was being watched. Chloe pulled out her phone and tapped the screen. Frank logged Olivia's movements, wearing my mask of the oblivious husband, while his camera captured her secrets. "Just remember," Frank said, leaning back in his chair, "the key to this game is patience. We'll hit her where it hurts, but only when the time is right." "Days sent this," she said, turning the phone toward me. It was a video of Olivia, dressed in a flowing summer dress, laughing as she walked hand in hand with another man. Another man, not just anyone, but someone with messy hair and an impish grin that seemed to turn into weeks as he compiled a dossier of Olivia's betrayals. Images of her entwined with her lover, receipts for expensive dinners, and text messages filled with flirting that made my stomach churn. With each piece of evidence that surfaced, my anger transformed into a steely resolve, a determination amplify Olivia's carefree spirit. I could feel bile rising again, but I smoothed my breathing and forced myself to watch. "When was this?" I asked, as if my voice would somehow ground me. "This was last Saturday," Chloe said, her voice a blend of sympathy and sympathy. "She told you she was going to brunch with her friends." I clenched my fists under the table, feeling that familiar rage bubble just beneath the surface. "She's lying to me, to our kids, to herself." Chloe reached across the table, her hand covering mine, to not only expose her, but to reclaim my life. Chloe played her part perfectly, feeding me intimate details about Olivia's schedule and using her friendship to get close to her. We shared late-night phone calls, plotting like conspirators under the cover of darkness. "She'll never see Daniel. What you're doing is going to change everything. Are you sure you want to go through with this?" "I have to. I can't let her think she can get away with this." I pulled my hand from under hers, needing space. I didn't want to admit it coming. Chloe said one evening, her voice barely a whisper. Then, one September afternoon, under a fading sun, I confronted Olivia for the first time. I had come home early, a calculated move, the air thick with anticipation and dread. "Hey, Daniel." But her touch made my mind drift down paths I didn't want to explore, paths that tangentially warmed me, yet felt overwhelmingly wrong. The weeks rolled by, and I played the role of the oblivious husband so well that sometimes I surprised myself. We shared meals, discussed the kids' plans for school, and went through the motions of a normal life. But behind the scenes, I was preparing for war. One afternoon, as I watched the kids wrestle in the backyard, I caught sight of Olivia coming through the gate. With a bright smile plaster her home early. Olivia chirped, her voice bright and cheerful. She was flipping through a magazine in the living room, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. "Can we talk?" I said, my tone neutral, my heart pounding like a war drum. She looked up, Ed across her face. She waved, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. "Hey, honey, I'm back from lunch. What are the kids up to?" "Just a bit of tussling," I replied evenly, forcing a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "Everything okay?"